The last time you opened an app, did you decide what you wanted to watch or was it the app? We like to think of ourselves as independent thinkers, that once we come across a fact, we process it, we weigh it, and then we decide if it's true or not. We think of information as water flowing through a pipe, arriving in our minds the same way it started. But that's just false. Information isn't neutral, it's a lens. And whoever shapes the lens controls how we see the world. The truth is, before you even reason about a fact, that information has already been processed by the words used to describe it, how many times it was repeated, and by the other words placed beside it.
But first, let's take a step back and analyze where information control in civilization comes from, and how its purposes and effects on people have changed throughout history. A much older and straightforward example of information control can be taken all the way back to the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BC, an ancient conflict between Egypt under Pharaoh Ramses II and the Hittite Empire. The battle ended in a stalemate with heavy losses on both sides, but yet they both returned home declaring their victory over the other. Ramses II commissioned spectacular stone reliefs depicting himself leading the battle, cutting down enemies with a bow on his chariot, but importantly left out the part where they failed to capture the city, as the Hittites would helpfully point out in their own records. This small twisting of the truth was enough to turn major casualties into a sensational victory to the Egyptian people. But what happens when people do find out they're being deceived? The Catholic Church at the end of the Middle Ages found out what happens when lies get a little too big to handle. Before the printing press, the Bible had to be copied manually, pen stroke by pen stroke, which was very slow and expensive. The Catholic Church only allowed the Bible to be written in Latin, which was almost only understood by their priests and clergy. And they used this to fabricate a lie, several lies actually, but the big one was that indulgences could be bought from them for the forgiveness of sins, blatantly contradicting the entire point of the religion and trying to scam everyone in Europe in the process. But when Martin Luther translated the Bible into German and the printing press was invented around that same time, the translation got copied at such a speed that even the Catholic Church couldn't keep up with it, and their influence over Europe slipped. This led to a long series of schisms, divides, and violent conflicts all across Europe. But neither the ancient Egyptians nor any European during the Reformation could have imagined the role new technology would play in the future of information, using it to control and exploit people on such a mass scale, not just for personal gain, but to fully manipulate as many people possible into becoming complacent in some of the most horrific atrocities in the history of mankind.
To understand how this works, we have to look at one of the most famous examples of information engineering in history: Germany, 1933. It wasn't just about posters and speeches, it was a total takeover of the infrastructure of thought. Joseph Goebbels, the Ministry of Propaganda, they didn't just want people to follow orders, they wanted them to lose the ability to think otherwise. The radio. The government pushed a really cheap radio called the People's Receiver during this time. It was a miracle of technology, but it had a catch. It had a really short range. This meant that it could transmit German signals almost perfectly, but it could not get the further along signals like the BBC. These broadcasts were just completely missed out on the German ear. They didn't just tell people what they want to hear, they physically limited what was possible for the people to hear. Number 2, the rallies. They understood that emotion kills logic. The Nuremberg rallies weren't just meetings, they were total experiences for people. Imagine 100,000 people with giant cathedrals of light pointing up into the sky and booming music. When you're part of that experience, you aren't just an individual anymore, you're part of a cell. And the brain stops questioning and asking for evidence because you finally found a sense of belonging. They changed the language itself. They used terms like parasite or virus to describe people they didn't like. If you stop calling someone your neighbor and start calling them a pest, the way you treat them automatically changes. Chapter 6 of Mein Kampf mentions propaganda must limit itself to a few points, and and repeat them to the public until the last member of the public understands what you want them to understand. Now you might think, that's history. We don't have a ministry of propaganda today. And you're right, we have something much more effective. We have the algorithm. The engineers who built our social media apps didn't set out to be dictators, they just wanted engagement. They wanted you to stay on the app longer. But the system they built eventually learned the same secrets that dictators knew. Outrage spreads faster than truth. Fear keeps people scrolling. Simple, angry stories outperform complex, quiet ones. The algorithm watches your every move. It knows what makes you flinch, what makes you angry, and what makes you feel safe. It then builds a digital bubble around you. It doesn't hide the other side because it hates them, it hides them because showing them might make you put your phone down. In 1933, you needed a ministry to hide the truth. In 2026, the truth isn't exciting enough. This is what I call the Frankenstein problem.
Hello there.
In Mary Shelley's novel, the scientist creates a monster that he eventually cannot control. Today's engineers are troubled by what they see. They see the fragmentation of reality, the polarization, the anger. But there is no single person to blame. It's not a conspiracy, it's an optimization. No one is choosing what you believe, but the system is choosing what you see. And what you see, over time, becomes what you are. Somewhere right now, a person is sitting at home, scrolling through their phone. They're reading a post that makes them feel 100% certain about the world. If you ask them, they would tell you, with complete sincerity, that they reached their conclusion all by themselves. They would tell you it's their own free thought. But they wouldn't be able to tell you why that specific post found them, or how their world would look if the code had chosen a different lens. The first step to escaping the architecture of belief is realizing that you're standing inside it. So the next time you feel a surge of certainty or a rush of anger at something you read, stop. Ask yourself, did I find this truth, or was it designed to find me? Because the most dangerous cage is the one you can't see. Alright. When you open an app, do you feel like you are choosing what to see, or is the app choosing what you should care about?
Definitely the app choosing what I should care about, especially on like Instagram and like Facebook. It's just all like the recommended stuff. So yeah, definitely not choosing. The app's choosing for me.
It's me who chooses the app, but at the same time, it's also the app that chooses what do I usually open. So
I feel like it's probably the app doing a lot of the work for me. With all that I've heard about algorithms and everything, doing a lot of the work in the background and how much money these companies pour into algorithms, I feel like it's probably the app doing a lot of the work for me and not me.